What is going on, guys? It is MurderInc here, back with another Raid Shadow Legends video, and today we're going to be tackling the question of where do you stand with this game's progression? Are you early game, mid game, late game, end game? These are going to be the guidelines I use, as well as many other players who have been playing the game for a very long time. A lot of this stuff doesn't change too much unless a lot of these categories don't change too much unless new content comes out or difficult content. Then we have to revisit this, look at the breakdowns here, and adjust accordingly to that. So the first obvious statement we do have to make here is this is my opinion. Although it is pretty widely accepted, I'm not going to claim that this is factual by any means, but if you are watching my content, this is what I'm going to be referring to when I do state something as early game, mid game, late game, or end game. You're going to see the exact breakdown here, and this is going to be very important for the upcoming videos I'm going to make. So it's going to be a great tool to have to your disposal, and I'm going to post information I'm about to explain and show you in my Discord as well. So with that being said, let's head straight into early game. Now, the early game classification for me personally is going to be 5 to 6 or more 6 stars, fully mastery champions, 2 to 3 or more, all dungeons stage 5 or higher completed, faction war progress 1 to 4 stars per faction as a minimum there. Doom Tower, not applicable yet. Arena, anything above bronze 1 after each reset. 3 versus 3, it's going to be a reoccurring thing. It's a really hard category to place. You have to get really lucky with champions, gear. It's a pretty messy system overall, so I elected to opt out of using this as a metric for most of these classifications here. And finally, clan boss starting hard progression. It doesn't include getting the top chest here. So reading these things word for word, I just want to bring our attention to the bottom here. If you just read this and don't listen to the explanation of it, you're not going to understand some things. Some things won't make too much sense to you. They might seem a bit ridiculous, but through explaining it, you will understand this. So that is where I leave early game. Moving on to mid game, we have 6-star champions, 10 to 15 or more. Fully mastery champions, we have 6 to 7 or more. All dungeons completed at stage 15 or higher. Faction war progress, most factions at or close to stage 15. For the Doom Tower, 2 to 3 normal rotations on farm. Hard progression has started for a mid-game account. As far as arena goes, above silver 3 at least each reset. 3v3 is going to apply the same as early game, not applicable. Clan boss nightmare progression has started, not the top chest is required. So the first thing you might be thinking to yourself is, what happens to players who are in between the gap of the first example here of 6 stars? What if you have 8 or 9 6 stars, but you don't quite have 10? Does that mean you're not mid-game? So the reason why I put all of these categories here is because having just 1 or 2 of them does not put you in the category of mid-game. As I've seen when I've started many accounts in the past, as many players with multiple accounts will know, you can get extremely lucky when you first start an account. You can pull game-changing legendaries, and you can even go all the way to stage 20 dungeons while you're still early game. Now, being able to do stage 20 dungeons doesn't make you a late game player just for getting lucky for pulls. That is why we have all of these different sections here, because development of an account is much more important than the champions you pull that can give you an edge over all of the other players simply based on your RNG. So that's the major talking point here. The next thing we want to talk about is going to be late game. Are you late game? 6-star champions, this is not applicable anymore. Full mastery champions, also not applicable. All that's really going to matter is your progression as a player or the actual content this game has to offer. It might take some players 26-star champions, it might take some players 40, 50, so on and so forth. So I'm not going to consider that, as well as for how many fully mastery champions you do need, because you can do a lot of this content without masteries on any of your champions. So for late game, all dungeons are stage 20 to stage 25 based on efficiency preference. I've done a video on this before. Stage 24 is the most efficient. However, some people, based on the teams they do have, should be farming stage 20, even though they can farm stage 25 simply because of how quickly they can do it. So that is a huge reason why I included all of this into this classification for late game. Moving up to faction wars, all non-champion restricted factions are completed. Now there are some factions, specifically Night Revenant, as well as the Skinwalker factions, that do require certain champions, although there's a lot more champions available to our disposals nowadays than there were over a year ago, but still there are some factions where you can get extremely unlucky and just not pull the champions and get stuck in faction wars. This should not dictate whether you're late game or mid game, which is why I was very clear and careful when I did add this point here. However, for the most part, you should have most of these faction wars completed by the late game to be considered a late game player. As far as Doom Tower goes, normal, all 3 rotations will be on farm. The hard difficulty, at least 2 of the 3 rotations are on farm. That is the new addition because we had a recent one that had a huge spike in difficulty. Moving on to the arena, Gold 4 metal farming and platinum during midweek progression. Progression meanings you can fight a lot of teams in here. As many of you will know, platinum during the midweek is significantly different than reset platinum. It's a lot easier. Most of the top players don't really push for platinum during midweek because it's just not worth the gems or time it does take to get there. You kind of slowly farm throughout the week just so you can make that push. Once reset does come around, 3v3, this is the first time we're going to see it. Silver 4 to the gold 4 range is ideal to consider yourself a late game player. Land Boss, Ultra Nightmare, 1 to 2 key is what you're looking for to be a late game player. Now, as far as the late game goes, this is going to be the most controversial category I do have in this video here. A lot of people who consider themselves end game by their definition would fall under late game on my definition because of the word end game and what it means to me throughout all the different games that I've played. So to break down endgame really quickly, endgame means you've done everything in the game at the highest level possible. So getting into endgame, while I touch on that point again in just a moment, 6-star champions, fully mastery champions, the same thing applies. It doesn't matter how many you have. All dungeons are under a speed farm of stage 25. This means if you're doing stage 25 in 5 minutes, that would fall under late game. If you can do it in 2 minutes, 1 minute, that's considered a speed farm, and that's end game content there, because it's rather easy to throw random tanky teams together and complete all of these dungeons, which would make the end game category way too wide. This should be the most exclusive and tight-knit category in any single game, no matter what it is, which is why the definition of endgame is completing everything to the highest level possible, which in a game like Raid Shadow Legends, that's a constant grind fest. Speed farming does take that category and classification as far as endgame goes. Faction wars, same things applied. Just like late game, you've completed everything now. Champion restriction is now off the table because it's content that should be fully completed. On top of that, you need to be speed farming stage 21. That means no 5-minute, 6-minute, 7-minute clears. You want to be doing this content in 3 minutes or less on stage 21 on full auto. As far as Doom Tower, same thing applies. All rotations, all difficulties are on farm. Now we're going to talk about the next point here, which may seem off to some people, and this doesn't really have to do with individual players and their accounts. It has to do with the major design flaw in the current Platinum Arena setting. So here I have top 100 Platinum capable on reset must be achieved at least once. The reason why simply making top 300 in Platinum on reset isn't considered endgame is because of, like I said, the major design flaw in Platinum Arena. Perfect example would be this past arena reset, which would be September 12th or 13th, depending on where you are in the world. The minimum qualifier for this past reset was 4,790 points, was rank 300 on reset. Rank 1 on reset was 4,920 something points, so you can already see the gap there. It's about 140 to 150 points based on the final results. Now, that may seem like a little amount of points. However, the distribution of those points is what matters the most. The difference between rank 1 and rank 25 was around 60 points. So let's consider that really quickly. 60 points there, which takes up half of the qualifying points for top 300. So now you have 1/4 of the entire bracket of Platinum Arena, holding a gap of only half of the points. So the reason why I chose to pick top 100, and realistically, if I wanted to be extremely critical, I would set it to top 50 is considered endgame, is because you can be in Gold 4 at the top of Gold 4 just outside of Platinum, and 2 people can have internet connection problems and disconnect and lose to your defense, and that will put you above rank 100 in platinum because of how close all of the bottom ranks are. It's that crazy, which should never be in the case. There is a lot of RNG you can build into your defense. That's a totally separate topic. However, 2 wins should not determine the difference between someone in gold 4 or someone in top 100. If you are going to be a platinum arena player, you should be able to fight all of the platinum arena teams on reset. So that was the reasoning by me saying you have to be top 100 to be considered endgame top 50 realistically based on the point displacement that's currently in place. Now, before arena was extremely easy, before almost every single player was in gold 4, this was a lot more realistic. The spread between rank 1 and 25 was almost 100 points on its own, which is now the size of all of platinum arena. So it really separated the players who should be there and the players who simply get lucky. You couldn't get lucky and get into platinum arena when the MMR system was fixed in the arena, and the arena was considered a lot more difficult. However, now that's not the case, so that is why I've put this as we see it here. If it does change, I would update this list and make it, if you make top 300, you are considered endgame, but as of right now, the current design flaw in the system has it set to 100. As far as 3v3 arena goes, I have gold 4 farming, and you can hold the rank very easily. Clan boss, 1 key no problem, any affinity, 1 key nightmare, 1 key brutal daily. Then new content, this is an important part. The first people to clear new content, as the endgame label is ever evolving with the addition of higher difficulties and new levels of difficulties in existing content. So in a lot of people's mind, how I have the endgame classified would be considered the top 0.01% of the game. However, I'm simply basing this off of the definition of what endgame means. It means you've completed the entire game, and based on the genre and the type of game Raid Shadow Legends is, these are all of the things and all of the different sections of content that would constitute as endgame if you wanted to label yourself as this. Now, it's not a bad thing if you had been calling yourself endgame and according to this list it's late game. Like I said, this is just what I use. It's really easy for me. It's, in my mind at least, logical and helps me break down content much easier than kind of catering to the feeling of where people think they are, because they can do a lot of content, maybe not all of it but most of it, so they call themselves endgame. I don't care if you do that. I'm not talking down upon you if you do choose to do that. However, the point here is this is the easiest thing for me to do as far as classification goes. And one thing I do want to talk about, according to this list, I myself am not even considered endgame because of the Doom Tower itself. I do not play the Doom Tower on live server because I have access to the test server. Well, I do complete and farm all of the bosses very quickly. As we already know, I've done the auto Bommel the Dreadhorn guides on stage 90. I've done stage 120 auto team guides. So of course I can do the content, I can clear all of the waves. However, the reward system just isn't worth it for me and isn't worth my time spent on live servers, so I don't do this. So I would literally not fall under this endgame category because I choose to play the Doom Tower on the test servers instead of the live servers. So some people can say, isn't that an example of how ridiculous this list is? No, because once again, I use this for content purposes and how I label things and my target audiences, and this is the most clear and concise way I can portray what I'm talking about here today. Alright guys, so that's going to conclude my video today. Do me a favor, comment below, let me know where you are in the game based on this list here. Let me know if you're early game, mid game, late game, or end game, just so I can kind of get a gauge on what type of content you guys are looking to see, because the more accurate I can appeal to the type of audience and type of progression my audience is currently at, the better quality videos and more helpful videos I can make for all of you today. I can continue my usual routine of making mostly late game videos. I don't make too many end game videos outside of concept pieces because I know it's such a small percentage of the community. Most players and viewers alike are mid game or late game, so that's where most of my energy has been directed. But if there is a strong early game crowd, if there is a larger number of a mid game crowd that I somehow overlooked, these are things I want to know, so definitely go ahead and leave that comment identifying where you are compared to this list. And as mentioned before, I will post this sheet to my Discord. I will update it as new content comes out so I can give people a good idea as to what I'm talking about based on the content I'm releasing as new difficulties and more content does emerge. Alright guys, that's going to conclude my video today. Don't forget, if you enjoy this content, like the video, subscribe, turn on the notification bell so you don't miss my next content, and I will see you all in the next video.